Hi everybody, and I wanted to make a video at the end of week 1 of class, and I know that you all have been very embroiled in Ken Wilber over this period of time, and I hope that's not a problem to be embroiled in Ken Wilber. It's he's uh, he can be challenging. He can seem very mental, and he has also, I feel like, made some amazing contributions to this field that we're involved in, this field of our evolution, and even to the what would you call it? The study of reality itself. What is it? And I'm not saying that I think that whatever Ken Wilber has written is correct or right, but what I do think is that it has contributed important ideas and even some brilliant ideas that stimulate our own inquiry, that stimulate the inquiry in general. And so there have been important contributions to this field that we're in currently. And although sometimes it can take some sifting through all of Ken Wilber to realize and see what those ideas are. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about this course, because this is not a course that I designed. So, and I'm going to, and I'm honored to teach it. It was a course designed by Bunny Clems, and I'm going to try to execute and teach it as well as I can. And it probably would not live up to her standards of teaching this course. But there are the other side of this is that there are things I would bring into this course that aren't actually in it. And personally, I would like to go much more into the question of what is consciousness before we decide on whether it's evolving or how it's evolving. Now, I actually am not even sure that in a conceptual way we can define what consciousness is. I'm not sure that we know in a conceptual way what it is. But I do think we all know in a direct way, in a sort of a deeper sense, what consciousness is. And so I do think it's important that we actually not think that we know what it is. It's important that we maintain a kind of sense of not knowing, a sense of mystery actually around consciousness. And because that mystery is something that opens us to this sort of deeper level of more direct knowing with consciousness. So we're going to talk about consciousness a lot, but all that while, let's keep in mind that there's a kind of mystery here to what we're talking about. Now, this study of the evolution of consciousness may in turn inform us on what consciousness actually is, and that would be an interesting result if that were true. That thinking about how consciousness is changing actually tells us more about what consciousness is. So I think that's an interesting angle, and we'll keep our eyes open for that. And what tends to happen in this course is that we're studying these very big issues. What's the origin of consciousness or human consciousness, and how has it evolved? Big issues over potentially big portions of time, and we'll get different stories from Wilber, Casey, and others. But the question remains, does consciousness evolve? And because I know some of you and your ideas reasonably well, I know that at least a few of you hold this idea that consciousness is changing right now. In other words, right now at this moment of history, we're in the midst of a shift, a change. And the language that some of you would use would be a shift from 3D to 5D. That's some of the language you would use. But nevertheless, whatever we call it, that there's an important shift in consciousness happening right at this moment. And this idea is actually quite prevalent in certain circles. And so while in this course we'll be studying this very big scale of does consciousness evolve, right now, at this moment in time, we have this opportunity where it's possible, some of us think, that consciousness is changing quite rapidly from sort of one mode to another mode of operating. And so that would mean that this moment in time provides us with an opportunity to see the evolution of consciousness in action. And I wonder if we can sort of think about this as we go. So what is it that makes us think that consciousness is changing, that we're in a transition period right now? What is it that makes us think that? What is our evidence? Is this an intuitive evidence that's internal and based on our own experience? Or is it based on that plus what we see around us happening in terms of our culture and society? What is it that clues us into this change in consciousness that's happening right now? And how does the change we think is happening match up with Wilber and others who we will study? And I think this is an interesting question. And so I'm putting it out there just for you guys to hold in mind, to noodle with. I tend to, in order to verify ideas, so in our culture, we've obviously been very influenced by science and technology, and the idea of proof and verification is outside of us in general. We run experiments, take measurements, and do they confirm our hypotheses, our theories? I'm not sure that we can confirm this idea of consciousness evolving like that right now in this moment. But you can all go into yourselves and think about your own shifts in consciousness, what you've experienced, and sort of use that as a kind of verification. And you can measure that against things such as the sequences of conscious evolution that Wilber talks about, for example. Have you seen some of that in your own experience? What are the characteristics of the various stages, and have you sort of found those stages in yourself and noticed them sort of shifting? So you can always go to yourself for internal verification. And I want to say that in this course, or in actually any course that I teach, that's internal verification. Your experience is valid, but the key is to match it up to the course material and to external material, right? So it's as though I can cite references and works that we study and other kinds of sources of information, and I can cite my experience. And if there's a kind of synergy between those, then I have a very powerful sort of story that I'm relating, synergy between my experience and external, more conceptual references. So every single question, every single piece of writing in this course, I would encourage you to bring these two pieces together: your experience, course material, other material, in terms of citations. Bring these two together, make them, see if they fit together. If they don't fit together, then that's interesting. We want to hear about that. How do they not fit? If they do fit, then we want to hear about that too. So we want you in this course. You are the most important piece of evidence and confirmation that we have. So I'm encouraging you to do that, and you'll find that in all of your writing, I keep encouraging you more to do that. So that's going to be part of this process. Okay, I'm also going to share. I wanted to bring up, in this question that I'm raising about is consciousness in the midst of a radical change right now, so that we're in a transition period. One can't help but notice. And I'm going to share a trailer to a documentary that just came in my email today, and it made me think of this. And actually, the video is called Chasing the documentary is called Chasing the Present. Okay, so and this is it's a documentary written by a guy, very successful, extremely busy, stressed guy in New York City, young guy, and though he's leading an apparently successful life, the kind of life we're all supposed to be leading, he finds himself beset by at times extreme anxiety, with anxiety attacks, and this is I think he kind of hits bottom on this. It becomes debilitating, and he leaves his life to go on this global journey in search of the source of his own sort of suffering, his own anxiety, and talks to and meets many teachers, spiritual teachers, and other kinds of teachers around the world, looking for the answers. I think it's an interesting journey to go on. I will watch the whole documentary, but I haven't seen it yet. But I'll share the trailer with you, I think, or a couple of the trailers actually, which this already raised some interesting questions. And what the questions they raised for me was, yes, we do. We are in supposedly in the midst of an epidemic right now, but isn't, or potentially the real epidemic that we live with is one of anxiety, of fear and anxiety, and the number of sufferers from anxiety, the number of people taking anxiety medication, the number of people taking antidepressant medication is continually on the rise. Anxiety, depression, suicide, especially amongst young people, these things are constantly on the rise. So there's something, this perhaps in spite of our best efforts to help people, we don't. There's something that remains unaddressed in people's lives, the lives we live, such that these, what you might call mental health issues, are rampant, and that's the real epidemic probably. And all signs show that these things are increasing, that we don't really have solutions. The solutions don't lie in medication or pharmaceuticals. And they lie somewhere else. Where do they lie? Maybe this guy will find out. I don't know. But my question is, okay, so in terms of, are we in the midst of a radical change in consciousness right now in our culture? And in terms of what are the what's the evidence? What are the signs? How do these things that I'm talking about here, this whole sort of angst that seems to be increasing, how does that relate to this idea that we're in the midst of a transition? Is there a relationship? Does this work against that idea or for it? And how can we work it in? Because that's a definite observable, and it must be surely related to our own consciousness currently, and something that it's going through. So that's a line of evidence, right? That's a piece of evidence that we observe this in our society, our culture. What are the other things that we see and observe? Okay, I'm throwing this. These are just. Hopefully these will be thought-provoking things for you to think about, and perhaps they'll become relevant at different stages throughout the course, these ideas. But I would be very actually potentially in the future for this course to make a substantial part of the course focus on the change, the possible change in consciousness that's happening right now, and what we know about it and what we don't. But we'll see. That's something for me to work on. Okay, you guys, everybody, welcome to the course, and I'm going to get into this discussion post for this week, today and tomorrow, and so I'll be responding to you, and here we go. I guess my phone was telling me that was the end of the video. Okay, bye. I'll be talking to you soon.